So I finally watched Sword Art Online Progressive Aria of the Starless Night, and I had some of the best time watching a anime film that I have had in a really long time. And current space in the anime film industry has been at an all-time high. We continue to get really great anime movies based on a lot of our favorite series. From the series that only a certain subset of people enjoy, from like 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐽𝐵𝐭, which is very, very niche, to all the way to Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen, Dragon Ball, and a ton of other series have taken up the mantle of putting out a really solid, meaningful movie in their respective series. And with Sword Art Online, this series is no stranger to putting out a really awesome movie that is core to the overall or overarching story. They've done it in the past before with Sword Art Online Ordinal Scale, and Ordinal Scale is like one of my top, I would say top 10 anime movies of all time. I don't want to say top 5 because it's not quite there, but Sword Art Online Progressive is now in my top 5. Yesterday, I watched it, and I finally had the opportunity to watch the movie recently, as I'm sure many of you had. And the reason for the delay on watching it is just I didn't get the chance to originally go and watch it in theater, and it was only in theaters here for a limited time, and the time that it was out was, kind of like risk it or don't risk it by going out into public spaces for the pandemic. You guys know the reason for it. And it just depended on how much you wanted to watch it. Personally, myself, I still try and like to keep it safe and dandy over here on my end of the world. And if there's a movie that I really want to watch, I take myself and my family and we go to the drive-in. Well, Sword Art wasn't available in the drive-in, and it was also only available in certain theaters in my area, so I missed out on it completely. And I've been waiting and biding my time, waiting for this movie to finally come out, and we finally are able to now watch the movie, which is awesome, and I am very appreciative of it. So let's talk about Sword Art Online Progressive, the movie. So this movie essentially takes us through the first few episodes of the first season of Sword Art Online up to the first boss battle, essentially, which is around, I think, the first, if I remember right, like the first 2 or 3 episodes of the original season of Sword Art Online. And the very first season of Sword Art Online, in my opinion, is like peak anime for me. And in current state of the world, Sword Art Online gets a lot of hate because of the second season of it, with the World Tree stuff and the fairy arc and everything that occurred during that arc there. But overreaching, even during that time, there wasn't as much controversy around it as there is now. During the 2012, 2013, 14 era, we're talking, almost nearly 10 years ago, Sword Art Online was the thing that took the whole entire anime industry by storm, and where a lot of current characters are still based out of today that took inspiration from Sword Art Online. And a lot of derivative and definitive anime productions have been created based off inspiration from Sword Art Online by a variety of creators in the manga space, light novel space, and in the anime space as well. And this specific movie took the decision to show us a story during the first few episodes of Sword Art Online Season 1, and it showed us through the lenses and the eyes of Asuna. And we start off the story with Asuna essentially, starting a normal day, and it showed us finally her interacting with her family. And we finally get to see that, she had a brother, she had a mother that she doesn't unfortunately get along with, not because Asuna doesn't want to, just because the mother is very off-putting. We got to see some of the dad's actual personality, which we did get to see, throughout the rest of the series. But the way that he was depicted here was very specific. And we got to see the way that Asuna lived her life up to the events that took place in Sword Art Online. And really, Asuna was somebody who was, a very high production student who really put out a lot of results, who was getting ready to go through her high school entrance exams and was, top 1% of her school as far as academics. And during that, she was somebody who was never really recognized for that, but it was kind of expected of her, not only from a lot of the people around her, but from her family as well, just because of, the place in society that she was, because her dad is this billionaire conglomerate of a very high-level software company. So this is kind of like royalty in a sense. These things that she was accomplishing, being a very good athlete, being very good academically, from her family were just expected. And the only type of recognition that she ended up getting was from her older brother and not her family proper. And we got to see some of that, and it's really sad when you see that occur. And I think that Sword Art really nailed it from her perspective. Then we finally get to see her meet the second main character of the movie in Sword Art Online, and we finally got to see her meet Misumi or Miko. We finally got to see her meet her, and it was a very interesting meet for the first time, because Mito ended up being one of the characters that is original to the story, and I think very purposeful, and was very interesting to just learn more about her. So Mito ended up being also the person that was exceeding academically in Asuna's school, and they ended up being friends, and they actually ended up being gaming friends, because Asuna one day stumbled upon a arcade shop, and a match of, I think, Tekken, I think is what it was. A match of the fighting game Tekken was going on the big screen outside of an arcade, and Asuna immediately recognized that the person that was that won that tournament, or was leading the tournament, was the same girl from school. And outside of it, before she can run away, she noticed that Mito girl notices Asuna, basically bullies her in that moment, and they quickly become friends, and they begin gaming together, and they begin playing games, and that transcends into Sword Art, where Mito wanted her to to come and experience something that is different and very unique in this VR MMO world, using the actual VR headset. And at that time, Asuna did not have one, nor could she get one just because of her family relations. But she did end up finding out that her older brother did in fact have one of these headsets and a copy of Sword Art Online. So she goes in, she jumps in to meet Mito for the first time, and we get greeted to a really awesome character creation. We get greeted to, her finally meeting Mito in the game, and Mito was this big burly dude. And then we get to see them subsequently go on their adventures for the first time, as Mito introduced a brand new world, very much really to Asuna, because Asuna's never experienced anything like this before. She's never played a VR MMO game before. So we get to see that we get to see them go through the whole entire motion from there, which, again, I'm sitting there and I am just absorbing everything that has been happening during the story. I love seeing Asuna from another angle. I like seeing her be vulnerable and be confused. And in no way, shape, or form was she ever like this, sword play expert, kind of like how Kirito was, who, he had donned up the sword before. He had been taking kendo for several years. That wasn't Asuna. Her sword skills were very much learned, or I don't want to say learned. Her sword skills were very much honed in during the time that she spent in Sword Art Online. She had, a very specific, knight stance. She uses that, a very specific weapon, and she has, this knight stance, as opposed to the typical kendo stances that we typically see, from Kirito and other players in the world. So I think that is very interesting as well, is just her kind of learning and becoming Asuna during this journey with Mito. And eventually they get to a place to where the whole entire movie, you're thinking that Mito's gonna die. So as I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, it's not if this girl's gonna die, it's when she's gonna die and how she's gonna die. So every moment that's happening, I'm like, okay, is this it? Is this it? Is this where it happens? And it continually didn't happen until one moment to where they have to face these plant monsters, and Asuna gets in a tizzy, and she gets in a specific dire situation, and Mito abandons her. She just straight up pieces out because she doesn't want to see Asuna potentially die because she couldn't make it back to her. When she decides to disband the party, she essentially like dips out, and thankfully, before Asuna can be dealt a final blow by a boss monster that she encounters after these plant monsters, our boy Kirito comes to save the day. And this is where I thought the movie and the anime got even more interesting than it was already before, is we get to see a different angle from where Kirito and Asuna first met. Now we get to see that they actually met a lot earlier than they did originally in the anime. They interacted a lot earlier. Kirito saved her once before, which began spurring on the initial interest, the heavy interest that Asuna had in Kirito. And it started from that moment. Then Asuna takes up the mantle and she goes out to be like this solo player. Then we get to see her and Kirito meet once again, and we find out that Kirito actually asked her to be in a party with him. He takes her back to his place. She gets to, enjoy a bath. She's very shower bath motivated, which I'd love to see. Is very cute. We get to see them interact a lot more. And then we got to see them go to the first meeting with 𝐒𝐴, which is the blue hair guy that we saw in the first couple episodes of Sword Art proper. And the timeline for us to get there and how it was depicted originally and how it was depicted here, I absolutely fell in love with. And we get to see them meet there again, form a official solo party there. And then they get to go and take on the first boss raid together. We get to see during that time that Kirito actually gave her a weapon, which I originally thought was her weapon of choice that she had been using throughout the whole entire series. But we come to find that later on, when they go and take on the boss, that she sees Mito there again. They high five. She tells Mito not to worry about it. She finally understands what was motivating Mito the whole entire time, being this beta tester, being this very heavy gamer. She finally understands where she's coming from because of the time that she spent with Kirito. Mito then, at the point that where Asuna almost died, the main reason was because Mito went and took on a monster and got a special drop from this monster and prioritized that over Asuna. But we find out later on during the boss fight that she actually went to go prioritize that because one of the drops that this monster drops was a rapier, which is the specific weapon that Asuna dons during the show. And, before she goes and deals the final blow with Kirito on the boss monster, she gives her the weapon. And we find out that Mito is actually the one that gave her the weapon that Asuna continues to use through the series of Sword Art Online. And I was like, oh, that's so awesome and amazing. Then she finally takes on the boss monster with Kirito. We get to see, exactly the same things that happened during Sword Art proper. Instead, Mito was a part of that last blow. Then we finally see Asuna parting ways with Mito. We'll meet again kind of thing, but I'm going to go chase what I feel is right in this world, and that's Kirito. And instead of Kirito and Asuna splitting up here, they go and set off to the next level of Ironclad together, which I absolutely love. So I'm in love with this take on Sword Art. I love the progressive mantra. I love the progressive storyline. It's one of the only, I have very few light novel series. Progressive is one of the very few that I have just because it's so interesting. I love the different angles. I love the original character Mito. I love that we're gonna see her again, that she didn't die this specific movie. We have a new progressive movie coming out too, which is called 𝐒𝐮𝐩𝐩𝐸 of the Deep Night, that comes out later this year in 2022 in October. So I'm excited to be able to see that. But I really think that this was like a 9 out of 10 movie. This was fantastic. The animation was great. The Sakuga was great. The storytelling was amazing. And if you are a Sword Art Online fan, don't be afraid to say you're a Sword Art Online fan. Who gives a F? Like what you like. Period. The end. If you are, shout out to the rooftop of everybody that they need to watch this movie because it was absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Guys, that's been my review of Sword Art Online progressive movie. Aria of the Starless Night. Love this movie. Top 5 anime movies of all time. Probably about number 4. Really enjoyed my time with it. I'm going to watch it again, 1 or 2 more times, and then I'm going to watch it again when the dub finally comes out sometime this year. And I'm just going to continue to love this movie all the way till we get to the new progressive movie that comes later this year. But really fantastic. Love the progressive storyline. And I hope that they change the storyline for more than a movie and they change it into actual series, because I would love to see a series based on the progressive storyline. All right, if you watched it, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Thank you for joining this very long-winded review of progressive Aria of Starless Night. And my friends, I'll see you on another anime video. Peace.